If there's someone listening right now and they are feeling just absolutely consumed by trying to support a loved one who's struggling with alcohol, how can they find a little bit of relief?
Not all the groups are the same. Not everything, right, is going to be that cookie cutter. So if one doesn't work, keep searching. Al-Anon or whatever, if it's not working, there is something out there. I promise you that, because there's nothing you're going to experience that probably somebody else hasn't that can help you navigate the rest of this stuff.
Finding connection, taking care of yourself, giving yourself a break from the trials of all of this, and finding your people. Look for the similarities. Look for someone who's in the solution, someone who has some positivity.
I want you to remember that their problem with alcohol is not a reflection of you or your worth. To the parents out there who have a kid that is struggling, it is not because you made a mistake. It is not because you weren't good enough as a parent. To a spouse, it's not because they don't love you enough. It has everything to do with them and their battle and their struggle.
It was one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn, was that love didn't mean control. Love meant literally that they could be who they are, do what they need to do for them. And I can still show love wherever they're at without at all telling them, giving them advice. It is just allowing it to be. And that's hard. Welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. You're hanging out at the intersection of emotional wellness, personal growth, and living an alcohol-free life. Here we share everything we've learned and continue to learn about how to be happy, no alcohol needed.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to No Alcohol Needed, the podcast. We are so happy you are here hanging out with us today. We've got Janice and Matt here today, and we're going to talk about supporting our loved ones when they're going through struggles with alcohol. So we hear as much from parents and spouses lately, and we've heard from so many people lately, and frequently it's the parents and the spouses that they've got somebody that they love that's having a hard time quitting, and we know we need to offer them some support and some insight also. So that's what we're here to do today. It is absolutely heart-wrenching when you watch someone you love slowly deteriorate because they just can't seem to figure out how to stop. And it's easy then to find yourself all tangled up in it, and you kind of like don't know where your responsibility ends, where theirs begins, and how to draw that line. So it ends up impacting like every part of your life, and we know that. So yeah, how do you support your loved one without losing yourself? We'll start off by asking, what does it typically look like when someone starts to try to help a loved one who is struggling with alcohol? What does that generally start out looking like?
I'm going
So
to
it's
start right
oh,
off. Oh, do you want to go? I actually
I was ready to go.
thought. Okay, go for it. Go
Well,
for
because
it.
I actually just sitting here thinking about this. I have my answer from earlier that I thought about, but then I just started thinking about, like, first was lecture, right? I used to get lectured about how I should be able to control this. So there's a lot of lecturing, but then I thought about if I was on the other side of it, I think like the pain of realizing someone you love is going through something that you can't necessarily understand. Um, so there's that part of it that's pretty hard, I guess, really to understand that part of it. But then I also put just like it just in general not knowing what to do. But then what I wrote earlier, to me, what I really think it turns into is enabling. I think that's the end game of this. I might be jumping a little ahead here with that, but um, those are my first thoughts with the enabling, and then I actually had codependency with that.
Hmm.
So those are the first thoughts. I don't have to really dig too much into those right now, but those were the initial ones, and then just kind of sitting here is just remember the lectures about it.
Like the codependency part is you want to take responsibility away from me so you can make my life easier so it's not as hard. And then it should be easier for you to stay sober because I'm doing more of the things to make things easier for you. That feels like it's the right thing to do, to like ease the pressure, ease the whatever, except for you've now taken my choice away as to whether I can deal with this thing or not, or or maybe it's a thing that I want to have to learn how to do again, yet you're taking it away. So it's one of the hardest things was, I remember having a ton of responsibility taken away from me, and I found that offensive. I mean, I didn't, it was supposed to be a gift, but, and I don't know if I'm going to take this too far right off the bat too, but I remember one thing that I wished right near the beginning was someone to ask me what I wanted and just give me the space to say, even like, I don't know right now. But no one ever asked me what I wanted. It was like, you should do this, you should do that, and you should do this. And it was a list of things that they thought would help me. And I understand that comes from a place of, I'm hurting too, and my life is not going very well either, clearly, because if it's a partner, a friend, or whatever it is, and you care for them, yeah, easing suffering sounds like and feels like the right thing to do. I won't go any deeper into that. I'll leave that one alone for now. But that's what it sounds like it's the right thing to do. It feels like the right thing to do. I mean, fix it. That's the mentality. If I can fix it for you, then it should get easier. And that's not how it really works.
I hear you answering that from both the person that's an active addiction and also from the loved one.
Yeah.
I mean, and my thought in answering this question was approaching it from, what would I do if a loved one I had was struggling? And my natural instinct is, to go in to fix and to do kind of exactly with good intentions, trying to be there for the other person, and start slowly, like, I'm just going to take some of the pressure off of you, not put so much stress on you. And then it kind of it increases over time until you find yourself consumed with the trying to help them. And I like your perspective because I hadn't thought about it from that point.
I think when you try to save someone from all the responsibilities, you try to make their life easier. Like, I know Steve had like the credit cards taken away and like just everything minimized so much so that you didn't have to deal with it. It also sends this message to the person who's trying to get their life under control that you don't trust them and that
Mhm.
you don't believe that they're capable of doing that. And that is a really demoralizing feeling when they're fighting through something. And there's a balance there, right? And I don't even know exactly what it is. I think only the people in that situation can determine that. But I think it's important for our listeners right now that are maybe supporting someone to remember to let that person like keep their autonomy that's necessary. And you don't want to let them because their autonomy is getting them in trouble. But if you take it away, then it feels like you don't trust them and that you don't respect them. And that really goes a long way in causing more pain, I think.
So
Um, Go
I'm going
ahead.
to follow that one up with a story from my, like my own personal story. Cause what you talked about, having credit cards and bank cards and that taken away. And, in a sense, it felt like it was deserved because those got taken away because I lied a hell of a lot. It was also, a protection because that was a version of help. What happened though was I was a smoker and I didn't have any money to buy smokes. So what did I do? If I don't have any money to buy smokes, at first I'm going to ask other people for them. Then I'm going to scrounge around to find cash, which I did. I scrounged around to find cash so I could buy a pack from someone for cheap. I bought Indian smokes. And so I bought them for cheap and I bought a pack off the guy. and then eventually I needed gas in my truck. And when I bought gas for the truck, I paid for smokes when I paid for the gas inside the store. So it didn't help me any, to tell the truth, because I continued to try and achieve the thing that I wanted to achieve regardless of my obstacles. Right?
It made you
Eventually
sneak around more.
it made me sneak around more. I was already good at sneaking around. It just made me get more creative. And I guess that's I eventually broke that habit. But I broke that habit on my own, realizing that that was something that I needed to stop doing. It wasn't somebody trying to force it and trying to help and remove the responsibility. I mean, the responsibility was removed, the means were removed, and then I got creative to still achieve my means. That's kind of what you do on the backside if you don't have it. And so I don't know that anything would have fixed that in those moments. I needed to learn that lesson on my own.
Mm-hmm. We need to learn all these lessons on our own. To Matt's point earlier about the lecturing, I think that if you're coming in at this trying to support somebody and you've never experienced what it feels like to actually have an addiction to alcohol, it's really hard to understand what that's like inside someone's head and how strong that pull is. And I know so many people are like, but look at how great your life is. You have so much to stay sober for. And then they're like, you're so strong, you're so smart, you're so capable. And that is our loved one trying to build us up. And really what it does is create more shame. Because then it's saying you have all these reasons that you should be able to do this. And to us, that feels like, what's wrong with you and why can't you do it? And why don't you love the people in your life enough to make this happen? And it has nothing to do with any of that. If I could have loved my kids and my family enough to get sober, I would have gotten sober a long time ago. It doesn't have anything to do with how much we love the people in our lives or how grateful we are for our lives. And I think that people who've never experienced that don't understand that that can actually be a painful thing to hear from someone. Yeah. So if we're talking about like starting to take on the responsibility of someone else's addiction, what does that look like? And then we kind of touched on the codependency thing, but is there anything else you guys want to add to what that looks like, so that our listeners can recognize that in ourselves, like in themselves, like, oh, we're actually taking on responsibility here that's not ours.
Well, and I think for myself too, it's been a long time since I've been in a relationship with another person struggling with substance use disorder. But I am not proud to admit, but I got a little manipulative and sneaky. I mean, it was hiding the alcohol. It was, distracting, prolonging, and some of it was bargaining and all of that. Like, oh well, let's have dinner first. Let's save the alcohol for a nice glass of wine afterwards or something along those lines. Because I, like you, Julie, was a late in life drinker. So initially I was a little sneaky too, trying different ways, more subtle ways of trying to control their drinking. And I wouldn't have, I wouldn't have admitted that it was control or manipulation at a time. I would have said, no, this is caretaking. This is me just watching out for them. Um, I'm happy to call their boss and explain why they're coming in late for work. If it comes from your partner, your girlfriend, then maybe they'll understand it a little better. So I did a lot of little subtle things, both sneaky and both obvious, to try and caretake, protect, all of which hurt me in the long run. All of which in the long run hurt me because eventually I felt guilty and ashamed of myself, if that makes sense.
Did you feel guilty of um, for the enabling behaviors? Is that what you're talking about? That made you feel bad?
Well, half of it I couldn't fix them, no matter how hard I tried. And a little bit of that, like you were saying, Steve, if I were good enough, if they loved me enough, then they'd come home after that first drink at happy hour, you know? But I didn't realize at the time it really didn't have anything to do with me. One of the things I think is, and I know we're not to the solution part, but one of the things I think is so important for family members to do, whether you're the parent, the child, or the partner, or a good friend, is to educate yourself on that. Because when I learned about the science of addiction, that one relieved my own guilt and shame that this was a chronic disease that was more powerful than me, just like my mom couldn't control her diabetes. I mean, she could try to control her diet, but she couldn't control her diabetes. You know, that the loved ones can't control the amount they drink. And my loved ones, when I developed my own alcoholism, couldn't control my drinking. So I lost my train of thought there, but I hope you can make some sense of it.
I was gonna say, you know what? It's one of those things where uh, I don't know if you necessarily realize it. Like in my situation, first it was my wife, and then it was my parents taking on responsibilities. And I don't know if it was. I do know it was because I just couldn't do things. Right? It got to the point for me where my drinking was so bad that just there was very few things I could do or handle on my own. So sometimes it's just out of a pure necessity of life that you have to start taking on these things for that person. I think though, then kind of going into this other stuff, it's understanding that fine line of what is the help versus enabling, because that's a very tricky thing. And I can look back now and see that a lot of it enabled me to keep going and doing what I was going to do, because it was always about me and the alcohol. Right? It's how do I get what I need, especially if you're going to take care of all the other stuff, all my real like world responsibilities. Sign me up. That's how it was.
Right.
Yeah, that's a great example of, from our perspective as an alcoholic or addict or individual in recovery, that maybe we need to address. Like, here are things that didn't work. You know what I mean? This
Mhm.
this did not work. I mean, I tried controlling my drinking when I was in active alcoholism. You're trying to control it. It's not going to really help anymore. If I can't control it, you're powerless too over it.
Mhm.
Yeah, I think that's what you just said there. There's a powerlessness also on the other side, that the only way you can try and feel some sense of power and or help or whatever that is, to actually engage and try and do the thing. There's pain on both sides.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
And I think it's super, super important to acknowledge that the the pain on the other side is likely just as great as the pain that 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 me myself is dealing with. Because I mean, I'm disconnected, which means the other part is disconnected. And if I'm not doing as much, that means the other part is doing more. So I mean, there's resentment on both sides that it just is not resolved.
That's
And
true.
and so, like, I really want to take a moment here to acknowledge that what's happening on the other side is something that we don't know. We don't know from very much experience, other than helping other people quit drinking, which Julie and I have done, and I mean we've all done. You so much almost start taking their sobriety as part of your responsibility, and it's sometimes it's really hard to detach that, because you've put so much time and effort and love and care and all of these things into that. And then when it doesn't go right, it feels like you've failed them.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a huge part of it. And I think that's when we talk about like when it gets too entangled and it goes from supporting to taking on responsibility. If you feel like you've also failed, if they start drinking again, then I would say that's a really like that's a huge red flag that it's time to look at the role that you're taking on and start considering where some lines need to be drawn, because this has nothing to do with your success or failure. And I know it's so easy to feel that because you're doing everything you can and you love this person so much. You just want to see them succeed. And we look at people who are like, oh, well, I mean, a lot of times it's parents and kids, right? When we have kids and we watch our kid try to do something and they can't do it and they've tried several times, what do we as parents do? We jump in and we help them and we help them succeed. Right? That's our job. Like that for moms and dads, that is innate in who we are,
Mhm.
is to see our kids, like, we're like, okay, I'm going to let you do this thing and I'm going to let you try really hard. But once they fail a few times and you can see it's important to them, you're like, okay, now, like, I'm going to jump in. I'm going to do everything I can for you now. And eventually, when we're talking about a situation where it's your child, your adult child who's drinking and can't stop, this isn't a thing that you can jump in and fix. It's not the same thing. It's not falling off of a bike. And it hurts to recognize that there's a certain point where, yeah, it's helplessness. You can't do anything. And that's the acceptance that we all talk about, in our own stories. As parents and spouses and loved ones, there's that acceptance that there's really nothing I can do to solve this for this person. That's it. That's like, and right there, that you're helpless in this situation. And that is so freaking painful and
It's a
also so
powerless
important.
feeling. It's an
Yes,
absolutely powerless feeling, and I think people on the other side have a very powerless feeling.
absolutely.
Yeah,
And go ahead.
I want to jump on that too, because I feel really strongly about how we as alcoholics need to empathize with our loved ones, and that it's not something that is preached to us or taught to us early on in our recovery, because our focus is so much on learn the rules, avoid the triggers, do the things it takes to get sober. And we forget. So, for any family member who's out there listening, including mine, who I continue to make amends to, I'm sorry. I am sorry for the harm and the hurt that I put you through. And I'm sorry that it took me a good 6 months of sobriety before I really woke up and saw the hell that I put you through. I was in denial. That's part of my disease. That's why I feel strongly about everyone understanding the disease concept. We understand at some level, maybe not at first. So we're family members. If you finally got your loved one into recovery, understand it's going to take more than a minute for us to sit back and go, wow, I did a lot of damage. It will come. I promise you, it will come with time and recovery. And, but my point being is that we have to, as part of our recovery, is to empathize with our family members, our loved ones, as much with them as we do with the fellow alcoholic or addict who's come to their first 12-step meeting or come to their first time they've reached out, right? Like, because when someone comes to me and makes a call and go, hey, I heard you on a podcast, or I saw something and I have some questions, I'll bend over backwards, especially if someone's interested, especially if they're in active addiction. When it's a family member of someone, I definitely reach over towards them too. But early on in my recovery, I definitely wasn't as empathetic to my kids, my ex husband, my parents. I thought, if they knew the hell I'm going through. So we are selfish and self centered, but we will eventually get it. Does that make sense?
Mhm. Definitely. It's a really important point.
It took a lot of time to get there. It's
Hmm.
going to take a fair amount of time to get away from it too.
Mhm.
Like
Yeah.
it's not a light switch as much as we wish it could be a light switch. And just because someone else has moved past it quicker, like Johnny down the road, he got over it really quick and he's turned things around, and it doesn't no one climbs up the side of that mountain at the same pace at all. Some people just carry a larger backpack, and some people have a harder time getting rid of the backpack or figuring out how to resolve what they're carrying, and some people figure out how to let it go a lot easier. I mean, acceptance is a really, really hard thing. on both
That is an
sides.
important point, that you can't compare what your loved one is going through
Mm-mm.
to somebody else's story. And it's easy to want to do that again if you've never felt it. It seems like it should be, well, so and so's son went to AA and it worked for him and he's fine. Why can't you go to AA and it should work for you? Or so and so, did some coaching and they're fine. And it's so easy to want to compare it. And this all occurs on a spectrum. It's different for everybody and everybody has different needs. And the reason that we all drink so much is because there was stuff underneath the surface and our stuff is all different. And I think so many people see an alcohol problem as this thing that's just on the surface. It's just a bad habit. And the reality is there's a lot going on underneath that you can't see, and it's different for everybody. And that's why it's so different. That's why we all need different things to come out of it.
So
Matt, what you got over there?
I'm gonna give a quick visual before we hand this
Okay.
over to Matt,
Okay.
because this as you're talking about like how quick and fast and comparison and all the rest of that. Take a general population, just to take a slice of the population, 100 people that cross down the street, and all 100 of those people have to run a 10-mile race. They're all going to finish at different times and speeds. They're all different ages. They're all different sizes. They're all different capabilities. They're all of that. Think about it in that way. We can't just take the same group and put them all through the same process and expect that they're going to go through that process at the exact same speed like a Toyota puts out a car off an assembly line. There's so much variance. There's so much, all the rest of that stuff. Anyways, go ahead, man.
Where are we talking about?
Wherever you want to take it. I figured we'd give you the floor for a minute. We've all been going for a bit.
No, I think you guys have all kind of covered the important parts of it. I think the part of education for a loved one though is huge. The understanding of the disease, um, right? That and then the fact that we're all different. There's not one all fix, right? I remember when I got sober, someone's like, "What was different this time?" And I'm like, if I knew what it was, I could write a book and be a millionaire. But like when it clicks, it clicks.
Yeah.
Hopefully sooner than later. But there's nothing. This is kind of a big point, Bear. But there's nothing they can do to make anything happen for us faster, right? I mean, that's the one
I mean,
thing.
they can actually. They can do things to make it happen for us faster.
So this isn't in my list of prepared questions, but I'm going to throw this out because I think it's important.
Yeah.
As a person who has overcome alcohol, what do you wish your loved one would have done when you were still actively drinking? What would have actually been helpful for you?
And this is what I mean by actually like how it could actually happen faster is
Yeah.
showing up in support and showing up in ways that's actually helpful and supportive and that sort of thing. I think it doesn't necessarily mean it speeds things up, but I can tell you that when people showed up in the right way, it's definitely helped my growth and it helped me speed things up.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you triggered me, so I'll jump in here with this just briefly. And this might sound selfish, but I want to say one of the things that did not help is when I took that opportunity to say, I'm struggling. I've started doing this. Oh, you might have to edit this out. But when it got brought up against me, like, and not necessarily even in a fight, but one of those statements like, I thought you were going to AA. I thought you had this under control. Or I don't know, when my vulnerability got brought up against me, that just wounded me deeper. It stirred up the shame, but it also stirred up the anger and the like, well, I'll show you, you know?
Mm-hmm. It makes you want to fight back.
It did. One of the things that helped me, though, I will say, is my family being supportive in a way of like Christmas Day, that first Christmas I was trying to get sober. They were like, yeah, go to meeting, spend all day at your clubhouse if you want to. And then not being pressured there. That was great. Understanding that I'm trying. So that little bit of feedback and support is huge. A little bit of criticism, a dirty comment can be really destructive.
Using the past as a weapon
Yeah.
is exactly what it is. It's destructive. You know, you used to do this and you used to do this. And if I'm trying to make forward progress and if the past continues to get brought up in a way that, like, I know that's what I used to do and I'm trying not to do that right now, but if we're going to bring it back up again, that's going to I'm going to end up being ashamed of the thing that I did that I'm trying to move forward through. And so, Janice, when you're bring that up, that won't get edited out. I think it's super important
It
to
is. It's
not.
necessary.
And I think it's habit. There's a lot of this goes back to the pain on the other side. There's stuff that has happened that is unresolved, that hasn't been fixed yet, and there's hurt and pain. And of course, I want to bring that back up because that's still my hurt. Not only do I have to fix my hurt, but so do you. And I'm part of that problem. And so, like, it's easiest for me to be the solution to the hurt, but we both have to be our own solutions to our hurt. I think that's an important thing to recognize, that we need to be our own solutions to our hurt, our own solutions to our resentment, and then involve each other in it.
In healthy ways, not in,
Yes.
don't you remember that one time but in ways that, are compassionate.
And then,
Healing.
yeah. And then like what that actually does is help take the shame away. And it actually creates a space where you can meet and talk about it.
Yeah. That just, okay, this is totally
Go for it, Janice.
spontaneous.
Right.
So I do a lot of educational things. And one of the principles that I always try to talk about in getting families to reconnect, well, I talk about 3 principles. There's 3 pillars of repairing relationships: creating a safe environment, but building that connection. And the connection doesn't have to be huge at first. It can be a small step towards each other. Because as you were talking, Steve, I thought connection, that's what's missing.
Can you
in
give
this
me
piece.
examples of what building that connection would look like?
Oh my God. Well, it differs from one situation to another, depending on how disruptive. So connection may be very simply, I'm just going to listen and not talk back. I'm not going to do the yes, but I'm not going to try to explain or justify. I'm going to let you vent if you need to vent, and then not be abused. I'm not going to be abused, but I'm going to listen. And probably listening is the most crucial thing that you can do. Listen without talking back. But it's a very basic starting point, is just listening and not talking, which for me, obviously, I want to ramble on. So it just comes natural. I will say this. I'm going to jump in with something, because on my way home from my job today, I reached out to a young woman who, an old friend who I hadn't talked to in years, and who said, and the reason why I bring this up too is because you had that lovely post the other day about how, or maybe it was even today, where someone said, I found your podcast to
Yes.
Steve and Julie, and it made a huge change. Well, a similar thing happened to me. Tried to promote the little podcast that my daughter and I were doing, and this old friend reached out to me, and within minutes was crying on the phone and telling me her story. So today I thought, I knew the 4 of us are all in recovery, and none of us, maybe we do. I don't know. I personally, my experience more is as a recovering individual. So I asked her, I'm going to read this from my phone. I texted her. I go, how would you answer this question? If someone's listening right now and feels completely consumed by trying to help the person they love, how can they find a bit of relief? And I know I'm jumping ahead. I'm sorry, Julie, but I just feel like I want to provide some solutions. And this is what she came back with. I would definitely encourage them to reach out to others who have lived the same experience, either
Mhm.
to Al Anon or friends of families of addicts, just to be able to vent, brainstorm, and realize that they can't control the situation or the addiction. And this is the part that I just went, staying consumed in isolation, which I think we do in active addiction, but our loved ones do too, because they carry the guilt and shame. But staying consumed in isolation is not good. You'll drive yourself crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But the point being, and I have to say, that when she first reached out to me, I put on my little social work hat and I was like, all right, this is what, textbook answers. You've got to take care of yourself. You've got to go to meetings. That's the best thing, it is. It is the best thing you can do for yourself is to educate yourself, learn, stop focusing on the individual who's struggling and focus on what you can do for yourself. And and we stayed in pretty close contact for a while on occasion. And we probably talked once a week. And she would be like, every now and then she would say something like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I never found Al Anon earlier." Or, "Oh my God, I wish I'd done this." And it was just so gratifying to me. I saw her grow and change. And so her last little text in this little text exchange was, "You know what? We're approaching a year." And this young woman went from, you know, being appropriately worried, upset, concerned about her loved one. You know, I don't want to put words because she might listen to this, but she's a lovely person. And I think what she was experiencing, a little bit of that desperation, a
Mhm.
little fear, a concern, like, what if this, what if that? And at that time, textbook Janice, and I would say to her, you got to talk to other Al Anons. I don't have the same frame of reference anymore. But when she did that, it changed for her. Finding her own network of people changed everything for her. So, and I'm not saying it's because of her that her partner is now clean and sober, but she's certainly happy and he is clean and sober. So they eventually worked together. And what was most gratifying to me was the peace that she had, and I witnessed her grow and change. Like, she started growing before a partner did. Does that make
Mm-hmm.
sense?
Mhm.
Like,
Absolutely.
she chose health despite her partner.
So I firmly believe that all people need connection with other people going through similar things. That is not just with addiction. That
Mhm.
is, people who are in grief need to need to be with other people who are in grief and share that experience and learn from each other and let it be a feeling that it normalizes it. You learn tools from each other. You get support that comes from real experience and empathy, not just what a book tells you. And in so many different aspects of our lives, moms need to get together and surround themselves with other moms because it's hard and it's overwhelming and we don't know how to do it right. So it's not just an addiction thing that we need to surround ourselves with others in that space. It's a human thing. And so it absolutely is one of the best things you can do if you're supporting somebody who is struggling with alcohol. Find other people who are supporting somebody who is struggling with alcohol. And even if they can't fix it for you, none of us could have fixed each other's alcohol problem.
Mhm.
But to be there with somebody else who understands what you're going through is like a magic that I can't describe. And it's not something that's just for those of us who struggled with alcohol. It is something for every person in this world to experience. It's there for you. You just have to choose to find it.
Yeah. Yeah. That's connection. We all need the connection
Yes.
in order to grow and to heal in our own ways.
Hmm. Matt, were you going to say something?
Um, just the part about she's talking about her friend educating, taking care of herself before their partner. I think that's more actually common, that is the case. It may take a while to get to that point, but I feel like usually if we have somebody supporting us or you're supporting someone, like they can be struggling, but once you understand that, like, I don't know what they're going through, I got to do something. It seems like that person then starts, like I said, like find their connection, Al-Anon, whatever it might be, and is ahead of the curve then of really having their support group before that person may have their own, right? But you have to do that. That's like what we're getting at here. You have to do that because if you're not, there's. But I'm taking all my notes today writing about this stuff. It was the airplane, right? I got to put my mask on before I put yours on. That's the only thought that like kept coming about to me with all this stuff is if with the support thing. It's like I need to make sure I'm solid to be able to help somebody else.
Mm-hmm.
That's a really good point.
Yeah. Matt, what comes up for you when we talk about like and I kind of like going both directions with this. What's one thing you wish somebody would have done, and what's one thing you wish somebody wouldn't have done from your perspective and experience?
So when you first asked that question a couple minutes ago, when I was thinking about that, so ex-wife, she tried Al-Anon, didn't work for her. My experience, I was still very actually heavily drinking. Seems like every time she came back, like I got some type of lecture or something to this. Whatever, doesn't really matter anymore. Um, on the other hand, my mother did the Al-Anon things. It's been very, very good for her. Still does it. Um, I don't know if there's one specific thing that either one of my parents. I really didn't ask my father for much, but I can say though, when I got really sick and had to go to the hospital, said I need a ride to the hospital. I got the ride to the hospital. And I think about in 22 when I knew shit hit the fan again for me, I said, "Give me a day. I'm going to look at places for rehab. Can you at least take Wednesday off?" I said to my mom, "Can you take Wednesday off and make the phone calls with me because my brain is not there to be able to handle these things." She did that for me. And it just kind of just brings us all again full circle. It's right. Those are the things they can do to help. But they couldn't stop it. They couldn't do. There's nothing there. I believe without a doubt, there's nothing anyone could have done that would have gotten me to stop sooner.
Mm-hmm.
I have been so fortunate with people willing to help me, give me places, connections with people, and in the end, I kept going
Mm-hmm.
until it was my time. So uh, I'm losing my train of thought here a little bit with this, but I don't. I wish I could think of something. I wish I had the answer that can fix it for whoever's listening to this. That's like
Now,
what
I think
clicks for them. But
you
yeah,
made a great point there,
Mhm.
though, in terms of when you were proactive towards working towards sobriety, they were there for you. They didn't enable you then, they helped you then.
That when I hear you say that, Matt, that you asked your mom to take time off to help make those calls with you, what I hear is that your mom showed up in a way that you felt safe enough at that
Mhm.
moment to say, "Hey, I need your help. Can you help me?" And God, that like makes me tear up. Actually, that's an incredible thing.
I
That
got
right
to.
there
I
is
was like feeling it when he said that.
that right there is the gift that you can give to your loved one, your kid that is struggling, is make them feel safe enough no matter what they've done. Let them know that they're safe enough that they can ask you for help when they're ready for the help. That's the magic right there. Because they're not going to be ready for the help till they're ready. But I certainly didn't have anybody that I felt like I could turn to and say, "Hey, I really need some help. Can you sit down here with me and make a phone call?" Not even sort of. So props to your mom and make sure she knows that she did a lot. She must have done a lot of things right um, to get to that point where you could ask for that.
hmm
Yeah.
Well, and the point you made too about they couldn't make you be ready until you were ready. No, we have to get there ourselves, which just emphasizes there's no amount of fixing, controlling that they can do to help fix us.
Right. And when we talk about feeling safe, what that means to feel safe, that means that I'm guessing, Matt, that you felt like you could ask your mom for help and she wasn't going to make you feel ashamed on top of the shame you already felt. Is that a little bit accurate?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, like at that point, it was when I would reach these points where I would have to ask for help. It was because I'm out. I had nothing. Like when I say like certain points when I needed help to go to the hospital, I couldn't walk. I couldn't. I couldn't eat. I couldn't do anything. Like, it was
Yeah.
a struggle. I remember going to the hospital many times, but riding the car and the sun would be too bright, or it wouldn't even be sunny. I would just be daylight and I couldn't handle it. Like, I mean, I was a mess. You'd hit a bump and like my whole body would hurt. Like, I was at the point where it's like, that's all I had. Like,
Mhm.
there was nothing else but help for
Yeah.
that. Right.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. The one thing that comes up for me when I think about like what I wish somebody would have done, um, is I wish that somebody would have just spoken frankly about what was happening. Because in our home, and this is different for everybody, right? Matt got lectured. I got kind of like ignored. And I don't want to say like ignored, but it was just like, let's just not talk about that problem. Let's pretend that problem doesn't exist. Um, and that hurts too. By the time I finally reached what I would call my rock bottom, and there was a moment in my head where I was like, I hope somebody finally says something because I couldn't say it myself. And yeah, I had to learn eventually to say it myself. It's not anybody else's responsibility, but I wish that I wish somebody could have just said, hey, like, it seems like you drink too much. Do you want to like talk about that? And maybe I wouldn't have talked about it, but at least maybe that door could have been opened. I don't know. I remember just wishing and wishing and wishing that we didn't have to pretend like that problem didn't exist because that made me feel even more ashamed. And there's a way you can approach that conversation without creating more shame, which I think is also important. It's not condescending and it's not um, accusatory. It's with compassion and kindness. But that would have helped me a lot. I think at least acknowledge it and feel like I could admit it earlier than I was able to. And again, it's not somebody else's responsibility to do that. And so I can't blame anybody else for not having done that. But I do think that would have changed the dynamic for me a little bit, um, and changed some of the emotions that were going on when I was still trying to hide it and still too scared to do anything about it. So
I,
let's
l-
talk. Oh, go ahead,
well, I was
Jana.
going to say, I think you said you wish someone had said, do you think? Is that what you said? Do you think
Yeah,
you
I
drink
think
too
like,
much?
or
So,
like something along those lines. Yeah,
yeah,
it's
it's a very,
ask for
it's a very
the
gentle way of approaching it. It's not confrontational. It's really, the message is supportive.
yeah. You can approach that in a way like, hey, I've noticed that this. Do you think that that's something we should have a conversation about? Is much better than all the other horrible things that some and I know that some people do just get accused. There's so many ways that people experience this in their lives, but for me it was all silence and let's pretend that that's not there. And all of these different things hurt in different ways. But let's talk about okay, so what does how do you get to the point where you can let go, or how do our listeners, how can they get to the point where they can let go of the outcome of the person that they love, without feeling like they're just giving up? Because I feel like that's to let go of the control, to let go of this outcome they're imagining, feels like you're just giving up on the person. So, what is can we speak to that a little bit? What comes up for you guys?
I feel like we've talked about that though quite a bit, right? It's the for me, it's the accepting.
Hmm.
It's the acceptance that no matter what I do as the loved one trying to help somebody, until that person is ready to stop, there's nothing that I can do that's going to do that part, right? But we've talked about situations and ways that they can offer support other ways. But I think that's just it's the unfortunate realization. It's the sad realization, but that is what it is. I mean, there's really no great way in my opinion to say it, but that's it.
Hmm.
They're in sometimes it comes to a point where it's like, sorry, they got to go completely on their own, right? Like I've been to a lot of places. I've known a lot of people, and it's like family said I was gone. They're living in homeless shelters or something like that. Like, I mean, you have to have some healthy boundaries for yourself. You can't lose yourself trying to help them.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Well, and I've heard people say that when they let go of the chaos, there was a sense of relief.
Yes.
It doesn't have to be all guilt and shame. For me, being a codependent and a mom, it would be hard for me to really let go if one of my child developed an addiction or a substance use disorder. I would really struggle with that. But when I left my dysfunctional partnership years ago, there was a sense of relief. It took a little bit, to be like, wait, uh, and to not be drawn back into the pattern. But there was a sense of relief, like, okay, I can step out of the chaos.
Yeah, that's a great point too, because I remember the first time I went to rehab. Um, the guy who helped me out, he's like, "You need to go there and get help," and he said, "Everybody at home needs a break from your shit." Right? And that's it, right?
Mhm.
Because everything in their life has been the exact same thing. And I remember years later having this conversation with my mom, and she said the same thing. It was like the little piece that they had in their lives were when I was somewhere else and they didn't have to worry about me. So that's so true.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
I
I
mean,
heard some celebrity say that recently and I can't remember who it is, whose child is currently in jail or at the time of the interview. And she said, well, at least I know they're safe. They're safer there than on the streets. And that was a little bit of a relief.
Right. I think there's when we talk about the letting go, and I think it's what can you control, what can't you control,
Mhm.
right? And I do this with clients all of the time. It's like we draw a circle, what inside the circle is actually within my control, and everything outside of the circle, you can't control that. So there's something to be said. There's power, because that's the most powerless feeling, to love somebody who's completely out of control with their drinking and be able to not fix it. And you focus so much on what you can't control and what you have no power over, and you drown in that powerlessness. If you can switch that to, okay, what goes in my control circle? What can I actually take control of? What can I have an impact on? How can I shape my life in a way that I can live with my life? And then, what space does that person get to take up in it right now? But we have to focus, and our listeners, you've got to focus on what you can actually do. And there's very little, but you can control your actions. You can control your decisions. You can control what you choose to put your time and energy into. And you need to do that in a way that's going to take care of you too. Because like Matt said, you can't lose yourself in this, because that's not going to benefit you or anyone around you if you lose yourself in someone else's problem.
that's
So I kind of have a
oh, no, go
I
for
was
it,
gonna
Matt.
say I kind of have a pretty solid example of this. So my brother has a drinking problem, and I mean I've known it for a long time. Never really has been brought up. Never talked about it. My mother and I have talked about it, but never my brother and I until a couple months ago. Our old boss passed away. We would go to the services, so I go over to pick him up. I could just tell something was off. And finally, he kept like saying the same thing over. I was like, "How much have you drank?" I straight up asked him, and we had this conversation. And right, going through it, I knew certain questions to ask that I could relate to and be able to explain things to him. And it came down to, what can I offer for help? I said, "Do you want help?" And he made excuses. And I said, "If you're not ready for help, here's what I can do." Right? I said, "You want to go to a meeting? I got a meeting." I said, "You want to do some outpatient stuff? I can make calls today and get things set up." I said, "If you want to go inpatient, I can make calls right now and have that happen." I said, "I have the ability and the resources to help you however you want, but I'm not doing that until you're ready to do that, because these calls that I can make, I probably can only make them once and I only save them for certain people." Right? So I knew what I could bring to the table. I put it out there. And the next day, he texted something to me, and I said to him, because he brought up the conversation, said, "We don't need to talk about the conversation anymore. I'm not going to bring up the conversation to you. If you want to talk about it in the future, you can bring it up and we can talk about what's going on then. But I'm not going to put the pressure on you. And when you're ready, you're ready. But this is what I can offer. So I put it out there and I set the boundary, right? I think that's another thing with all this is I set the boundary of I know what I can give and I'm not going to give more because I know
That's
it's not
huge.
healthy for either person.
So you're talking about control, and what continued to cross my mind was you can control your kindness, you can control your empathy, you can control your perspective, you can control, like, these are the things we always so much in society think about all of the things we can do, right? All of these action oriented things that are exterior to how I choose to show up in this world, and literally do self reflect. Is my perspective about this a healthy one? Because if I look at my own perspective, I can I can then see how I'm acting on that perspective. Because it starts there before it starts anywhere else. Can I show up in kindness? What else other choices do I have? I can choose what my boundaries are, how far I'm willing to go and how far I'm not willing to go. Then I can communicate them. One of the nastiest things we all do is have an expectation that's not communicated and then create resentment from it. So I start getting angry at you because you didn't do the thing that I didn't even communicate to you. And that goes both ways. The choices, the perspective, it's the little, that's the nitty gritty things that all happens between the ears. And then it's what do I do with it after?
It's turning inward, reflecting inward, understanding yourself. If there's one piece of advice that I could give anybody who is supporting a loved one that's struggling with addiction, it's to go read the book Codependent No More by Melody Beatty. That book will change the way you reflect on all of the things that Steve
It's a
just mentioned.
phenomenal book.
It's great for anybody to read. I think we all definitely will benefit from it, but that book was written, I think, directly for those people, and it will give you the ability to reflect on things you wouldn't have otherwise known to reflect on, that will give you those perspectives, and that empathy and the compassion for yourself and others that Steve was just talking about. So I think that's an important thing to mention here. I don't think we can I don't think we can talk about supporting loved ones without talking about Codependent No More and Al-Anon, because both of
Yeah.
those things are an absolute gift to people that are in that situation. So I'm going to bring us around to our closing question here. If there's someone listening right now and they are feeling just absolutely consumed by trying to support a loved one who's struggling with alcohol, how can they find a little bit of relief?
So the one thing I had, you just hit on it. Support for themselves, find their group. You mentioned Al-Anon. I think that's the one thing that a lot of people may know about. And I think it's important to say with that, right? Just like with AA, not all the groups are the same. Not everything, right, is going to be that cookie cutter. So if one doesn't work, keep searching.
Mhm.
Al-Anon or whatever. If it's not working, there is something out there. I promise you that because there's nothing you're going to experience that probably somebody else hasn't that can help you
Mhm.
navigate the rest of this stuff.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
agree. And I think self-care, and it can be a little self-care every day. It might be taking a hot bath. Those little things add up, but finding connection, taking care of yourself, giving yourself a break from the trials of all of this, and finding your people. There's lots of, and I'm glad you said that because there's good support groups and there's other support groups. I've probably told this story before. My daughter was looking for an Al-Anon group and walked into a what she thought was Al-Anon, and it ended up being a biker themed AA meeting.
Oh,
And that they were great. They welcomed her, but I mean, if you can imagine, she walked in with all these biker guys, and they still embraced her, and they're like, "Come on in, sit down." and I don't know how long she stayed, but sometimes you have to look around and find that place. But generally, there's going to be someone there who's, oh, here's the key thing is look for the similarities. Look for when you go to a meeting, someone who's in the solution, someone who has some positivity, because obviously there's going to be people who are stuck in the
It's not
spiral
even
down too.
meetings. It is just look for someone who has something that you want,
Mhm.
right? Somebody in that space that has something that you want, because then you can ask them, how did you get there? Because that's really what we're all after is how did you get there? Because I'm looking for peace too.
Yeah.
Your cat has joined us. That's so sweet. The little whiskers. I thought it was a sea anemone or something at first. But no, yeah, I think that's right. Is to find someone.
Mhm. I think if you're feeling consumed by someone else's addiction and you're trying to solve it, and I want you to remember that their problem with alcohol is not a reflection of you or your worth. To the parents out there who have a kid that is struggling, it is not because you made a mistake. It is not because you weren't good enough as a parent. To a spouse, it's not because they don't love you enough. It has nothing to do with you or your worth or your value or how much you are loved. It has everything to do with them and their battle and their struggle.
Yeah.
I was going to the same place that you did. Because when I thought about this, I thought about like, I just love them so much. And so, like, love doesn't mean control. It means we let them show up the way they are and we love them the best way we can.
Mhm.
It was one of the hardest lessons I ever had to learn was that love didn't mean control. Love meant literally that they could be who they are, do what they need to do for them. And I can still show love wherever they're at without at all telling them, giving them advice or anything from my to them. It is just allowing it to be.
Mhm.
And that's hard. Thank you, Janice. Thank you, Matt. Julie, always amazing. To our listeners, you are amazing. I want to say thank you too. And if you're looking for resources, you're welcome to show up to our Monday night meeting. I know we talk about meetings a lot on this show, and that is because we host one and it's part of our experience. It doesn't mean it has to be a part of yours. There are so many different ways to find support, to look for the things that you need for you. We're not trying to tell you that this is what to do, but if you're looking for some people to help you along your path, you feel free to reach out to any of us. We're here for it. If you connect with anything that any one of us has said, and that's what you feel like you want to, or who you want to hear from, don't be afraid. Matt's on Instagram. Janice is on Instagram. Julie and I are on Instagram, Facebook. We're all on all of the platforms. So, anyways, I guess that's what I'm going to say. You can go to our website. You can find us there too. You can shoot us an email. Thank you guys. We will see you guys on our next episode. Thank you, Janice and Matt.
Bye,
Thank you.
everybody.